We're here today at Pittsburgh Cerakote, obviously in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and we're here with Chris Mihalic. He's the owner of Pittsburgh Cerakote. He does all of our Cerakote work for us for our architect stuff that we sell online, the flat dark earth, the tungsten, the pink, and the mil-spec OD green stuff for us. And we're here today. He's going to show us kind of the process and talk to us a little bit about Cerakoting and how that process goes and what goes into it. We got a couple examples of some really customized stuff out here. I'll let you take over, Chris, and kind of tell us what you got here and what's going on.
Well, thanks for being here today, guys. It's nice to have visitors out here in the woods. We don't get too much of that, so I have to apologize in advance. I think this may be the first time I was ever on a Facebook or any type of recording video live thing. So
you are out here in the country.
Yeah, well, we don't get a lot of visitors, but that's okay. We like it that way.
Right.
Yeah, so we've been doing Cerakote going on 7 years right here in this building. We punch way above our weight for our size and shape. We'll see as we go through the tour, and we kind of do our, what I like to term, the nickel tour. And go through the process from the time you place your order into Armory all the way down the process and back to Armory. It's a small facility, but we managed to put out quite a bit of work and turn things out very quickly. As you can see from the examples here, we have a full line of just about anything custom. So when you look at our Instagram, our Facebook, our website, those things, you see a lot of the battle worn, the theme guns, the American flags, the camo, all these different things. And it's just because you could only post so many flat dark earth guns. So we just trying to show how unique it is and inspire people to be creative when they're thinking about what they want coating wise and things like that. But that being said, we do a ton of single color work, both for manufacturers like yourselves, also for individuals, all the way back to like factory restoration. If you have something that's just black or blued finish, there was a stainless finish that needed, you want to restore back to the factory normal, we do a ton of that work too. So just because you don't see it here and you don't see a ton of that stuff on our social media, it's a huge part of our business, and we encourage people, the single color, flat dark earth, OD greens, things like that. Burnt bronze is a popular color, so we do a lot of those type of things.
So we're going to take a little tour of the facility. He's going to show us how the process goes. Right back here behind us, we have the retail counter, where someone's going to come in and bring their gun in, and all the logistics will be worked out of how and what and when and where and why. And then we're going to go ahead and walk through the armory room here, and then we'll go downstairs and see the blasting and the actual coating. We'll actually watch Chris coat a handguard for us, and then I'm gonna step up out of the way here, and I'll let Chris take us through.
Yeah, so like Jim was saying, the ordering process, so you can make an appointment to come to our facility and drop your stuff off, or you can go to our website, pittsburghcerakote.com, download our order form, contact us via email, or call the shop for a quote. And then you can mail your stuff in or come and drop it off in person. So once an order comes in, everything gets binned up, and we write out your order, figure out what colors, patterns, anything custom you want, custom engraving, stencils, anything you can dream up. Once we get that all figured out, everything goes into Armory first. So this is our Armory space. It's in order to properly Cerakote something, you need to completely disassemble it. You absolutely have the option of avoiding the Armory fee by disassembling your own firearm. But one of the commonly asked questions is, how disassembled does it need to be? Unfortunately for Cerakote, a field strip doesn't do it. You have to remove all the internals, springs, pins, sights if it's a single, a semi-auto pistol, all the way down. We don't unthread barrels from actions. We don't unthread barrels from frames on revolvers, and then we don't unthread mag tubes from shotgun receivers. But outside of that, it's got to be completely disassembled. The reason is because of the prep process that you'll see in a few minutes. you get that grit and that 100 grit. It's a very fine media that we use, and it gets in all those nooks and crannies, and if it's not disassembled, it's hard to get it back out. And
Sure.
we want you to have a perfectly functioning firearm when you get it back. So we have all the tools, all the solvents, Loctites, rock sets, all the barrel nut wrenches, sight tools, everything we need to disassemble any firearm. If a firearm comes in here and people go, hey, I have this unique firearm that is not super popular, and you need a special wrench to disassemble it, we have it. If we don't have it, we'll buy it, and it'll be added to our collection, and it's at no additional charge to the people, to the customer. So any tool specific to any disassembly of firearms you could think of, we have it in here, and we have gunsmiths that work here, and they can disassemble, reassemble, and fire before you get your gun back after coating.
So real quick, tell us about, I know I've sent a couple things to you, and the paperwork being that I'm from Ohio, you're from Pennsylvania, the logistics of sending in a serialized receiver or just a whole gun. How does that?
So you can send a gun directly to FFL for gunsmithing. There are a few requirements. If it's a handgun or would be considered a handgun or a pistol, it needs to be sent a minimum of 2-day air, and it needs to be accompanied with a copy of a valid state-issued ID. If you're more comfortable, you can send it from an FFL to us. We work with all different types of FFLs all over. We have a dealer network. So our reach is, even though we're geographically here in Pennsylvania, Western Pennsylvania, we have dealers all over. So a lot of times people call and say, hey, do you have a dealer close by that I could drop this off at? And we do business that way as well. But if you ever have any questions, if anyone ever has any questions about the legalities or the logistics of sending a firearm, especially if it's a serialized part, they can always call the shop and talk to one of our guys or send us an email, and we'll walk you through the process to make sure that everything's done correctly. But if it's a long gun, it can go ground, but it needs to be adult signature required, and it needs to be accompanied with your ID. And then same thing, in any way it ships to us, it goes back. It has to go back to the address it came from. It has to be adult signature required, and so on and so forth. So, we've had people drive from upstate New York down in Maryland, because I know a lot of people are adverse about shipping their firearms. When you're in this business, as you know, we're used to it. We ship thousands of guns every year. But a lot of people, they're adverse to that. So, we'll make an appointment, and we'll make a morning out of it and come down and have a tour and get to know the guys and talk about your project and stuff. So we've had people drive some significant distances to come and drop things off in person, and we encourage that too if that makes you more comfortable.
Awesome. All right, cool. So we're going to go, Andy's going to take a scan of the armory room here. And we're going to take a walk downstairs and go through the process of actually blasting and Cerakoting. So we do want to stop real quick and take a look at the trophy wall here that Chris has accumulated over the years, him and his father. Pretty impressive. From me as a hunter, it's the first thing when we were walking up the stairs, I'm like, ooh, So, these are all bucks taken off of your farm here, Chris?
Yeah.
Except for the muleys, obviously?
Yeah, so all the European mounts are from the farm here. 100% from my dad and my brother. I don't think any of these are mine. I was always, doing something else. I didn't have, like Ron White always said, like I wasn't opposed to cold, and I have no problem eating meat and doing whatever, but it was just early cold. So my dad and my brother were both avid outdoorsmen, avid hunters. We grew up out here on a farm, and all the European mounts, besides the muleys, of course, were taken right here, and then some of the bigger shoulder mounts were from elsewhere. But my dad was a big hunter. My dad and my brother both were world-class hunters and outdoorsmen, and they just traveled all over. And every one of these has a story, and this isn't the half of them. I told you guys that earlier. We have them quite a few upstairs and other places. There's been a handful of them harvested, and there's nowhere else to put them. We could use the wall space for guns, but it is what it is.
All right, very impressive. So we're going to go head downstairs now and check out the actual Cerakote process. Tell us a little bit about what you got going on here, Chris.
So like I said, upstairs, everything gets completely disassembled. So once it gets disassembled, it goes into a bin with your order form, and it comes down here and it starts through the prep process. So everything goes on the shelf, it gets racked, it gets worked. Of course, we try to lump colors and patterns together to try to make it, more streamlined and more efficient when we're coating. But anything that has been built, shot, has any type of solvents, lubricants, anything on it, goes into our dip tank. Some parts that are fairly clean and haven't seen a lot of wear residue or solvent build up over time or lubricant build up over time, they might go in for 20 to 30 minutes. Other times you have AK-47s or something that are riveted together and they've been packed in cosmoline since the 70s, and they might sit in that tank for days or weeks. So we soak everything with an acetone solution. The acetone is a good evaporant. It's not water-based, so you don't have any corrosion issues, and it really helps to break up the oils and things, especially in the welds, in any areas that may not be able to be disassembled. Once it comes out of the acetone solution, it goes into the blast cabinet. We blast with 100 grit aluminum oxide. It's a very fine media, and what it does is it actually profiles or etches the surface to give you a really good adhesion area. We remove 99% of the time, we remove the factory finish. Bluing, parkerizing, even glass bead or other media type finishes, we reprofile with our aluminum oxide because it gives you a really nice base for Cerakote. Instances where we don't always necessarily remove the factory finish, in like fresh anodizing that's never been, it's unoiled, it hasn't seen any type of contaminant, it's fairly fresh and has good adhesion. That will get like a light blast and a soak, but we won't take it down to bare metal because the anodizing actually makes a really nice base for Cerakote. Fresh parkerizing that's been unoiled, you have to get to it fairly quick. Parkerizing is also a good base. So we have some customers and clients where their specifications are actually to have that parkerizing or black oxide or anodized finish underneath the Cerakote for an extra layer of protection. So once it goes in, it gets blasted with 100 grit aluminum oxide. It gets blown off with high pressure. Then you can see we have our racking here. All different types of racking. Sometimes you have to get creative. We've seen just about everything at this point. So we have all these different bins or different types of racking, plugging, all the things that you might need. The goal is always to be as like non-invasive as possible, so you don't want to see any racking marks after you spray something. Mm-hmm. So we get creative with the racking.
So when you say plugging, you're plugging threaded holes and stuff like that, or? So
that's a great question. So and it's one that gets asked quite a bit. So we plug the bore. So the bore in the chamber. If you're spraying a barrel action, AR-15 barrel, we plug the bore. We plug the chamber and the muzzle side. We don't want to keep that media and the coating out of there. But as far as threaded holes, one of the nice things about Cerakote is it's so thin. You can actually coat a 1/16 machine screw and thread it back together. So threaded holes, as long as we get the media and the grime and the gunk out of them, getting a little bit of coating in there typically doesn't affect the fit and the performance. Like I said, everything that we take apart, we have to put back together. And I hear it from the guys upstairs quite a bit, there's, whatever, there's a little bit of coating in here, it got tight. It does happen, but for the most part, threads, things like that, it's not like a powder coat that's a thicker application. Because it's so thin, you can really Cerakote your thread, Cerakote whatever, and almost never have any fit and function issues.
Very cool.
So once everything's racked, we have these roller racks. Everything's racked. They go in the oven for what we call an outgassing. It's a preheat, usually at 170 degrees. What that does is if there's any oil, any contaminants, anything hidden inside the parts, they come to the surface. If you do see any wet spots or any contaminant coming out of welds, screw holes, anything like that, we go back through the prep process. They go back to soak, back to blast, back to rack, back to heat. That's our way of showing, and anybody who does any type of coating, I don't care what it is, this could be Cerakote, powder coat, doesn't matter, automotive painting, they'll tell you that 90% of the battle is the preparation. So once everything comes out, it gets racked, it's all glove handled from there. One of the hardest things is to convince my guys that the gloves aren't to protect their hands or to protect the parts. So, we're constantly changing gloves. We go through hundreds of gloves every week. because it's actually to protect the parts from contaminants and things like that. Once it's all racked and ready to go, then it's time to spray, and that's the next step in the process.
Oh, yeah, he's got the colors.
My mask fell apart here on me. Outtakes.
So Chris is going to actually spray one for us here. We've got one of our 10-inch Architect hand guards up there. He's going to spray in a burnt bronze. Burnt bronze isn't a color we typically stock on our shelves. It's going to be a special for us, and we're going to do a giveaway on that hand guard for Father's Day. So if you're watching this, stay tuned, and when that comes back to us, we'll get it set up for a giveaway on Father's Day.
Yeah, so like you were saying, it's probably a good time to mention Cerakote has a few different series. So real quick, if you want to talk about the series of coatings, they have an Elite Series coating, which is engineered strictly for durability and thin application thickness. It's not a wide variety of colors. I think they may be up to like 12 or 15 colors in the Elite Series now. The H Series, which is what we spray 90% of the time, is a heat cured. They have over 120 some colors. They're constantly coming out with new colors, and then people are mixing colors to make custom stuff. That's what we do 90% of the time. And then they have what they call the C Series product, and the C Series is an air cured product, and we don't use that a whole lot. Certain applications you have to use the C Series, something that absolutely can't go into the oven for a cure, but we use the C Series to, for whatever reason, if need be, but that's those instances are few and far between. So we're going to spray your rail in burnt bronze, and then we'll throw it in the oven, and what are you going to do? Give it away, right?
Yeah.
All right, maybe I'll win that. So it's going to get loud when I turn the exhaust on.
Okay.
So just get set up here real quick. Everything's, my mask is snafu'd here. You can show them the colors if you want while I get ready.
So there's a wide variety of Cerakote colors. We got different bronzes, golds, multicam greens, graphite blacks, different grays, Glock gray, midnight blue, battleship gray, tactical gray, smoke. And just a multitude of colors, just about anything, any kind of color you want. And Chris can even mix custom colors, so it can truly be a one of a kind.
So what we do is when we spray these, we have to take a few different approaches, and it's basically everything gets coated 3 times. So we take our first approach to make sure we're getting all the inside of the rails and all those surfaces. So when you're looking straight on, you don't see any spots. Inside the Picatinny rails, all the vertical surfaces as we go. Then we make a pass over the whole thing. It's what they would call like a dust pass or like a primer pass. And then the third pass is just to even the coating out. Make sure that we don't miss any spots like that as I'm talking about it. And make sure that the coating looks completely even the whole way through. So it's not as easy as it looks, but with a little bit of practice, it gets fairly easy. And that's burnt bronze, very popular color. And now this will go in the oven for an hour. This oven's running at 300 degrees. We got some boat and rails in there already. You can feel the heat coming out of there. Stick that guy in there. And it'll be ready to rock and roll.
Very cool.
And we clean up. That's the best part of the day.
So what is the cleanup? You got to acetone all the parts out?
Yeah, so these spray guns are they're really well built, but they're fairly delicate. We use the Iwata LPH 80 with a really fine fluid tip because the Cerakote's so thin. So just rinsing everything, running acetone through everything, taking them apart, cleaning the tip, the needles, making sure everything's good. And then of course all our mixing stuff. We have our glass tubes and everything we use to mix the coating. We didn't mention that earlier, but Cerakote's actually a 2-part coating. So you have your bottle of coating. I can show you guys this here. So you have your bottle of coating, which is predominantly solids, and then you have your epoxy hardener. So you mix to a ratio, and then shake it up real good. And then once you mix about an hour, maybe 2 hours if it's covered or sealed and the ambient temperature is conducive, and then everything gets dumped. So a lot of times people ask like, well, you know, why is it so expensive to paint a widget that's this big? It's because we have a minimum amount of coating we have to mix in order to achieve our ratio. So that's why, you know, it ends up being a little bit more expensive for smaller parts, because that amount of coating could do an entire slide. But, you know, it's just a small muzzle brake or something that they want done in that accent color, or a trigger or something. So that's why.
Step out of here where it's
Hot in there.
where it's hot in there, and where the oven isn't making so much noise. So awesome, man. I learned something today. I've never seen this process. I've seen it done a few times on video, obviously on YouTube and whatnot, but to come and actually see it done is pretty cool. So I hope you all enjoyed this. I did. Like I said, I learned something. And if you're looking to have some Cerakote work done, hook up with Pittsburgh Cerakote. You know, check out their website. Check them out on Instagram and Facebook. Let Chris know, you know, where you saw this, and he'll be glad to work with you and give you any design, anything you want to do. You know, the guy's an artist. I've had a couple of things done. I'm not kidding, man. I've had a couple of things done by him. He did a green and black sake colored theme for me. It was the first one, and I think, oh, you did the burnt bronze battle worn for one of the guys at the shop. And I mean, the stuff you do for us, our American flag handguard and our Texas handguards, it's really works of art, man. I would love to be able to do stuff like that. I'm just not that artistic.
Well, come on down. You know, you can learn.
Yeah.
Anybody can learn to do it. It just takes practice. You know, I'm not an artsy guy by any means. I get accused of that quite a bit. You know, you're one of those guys that's always accusing me of being an artist, but I don't consider myself that. But yeah, it's a process. You got to go through it.
Yeah, it's a very cool one. So we appreciate you taking the time and helping our audience learn a little bit about Cerakote. And that's all we got for today, guys. Remember, you don't have to be an expert to build your own AR, to upgrade it or maintain it. We're here to help you do that. Thanks. We'll see you guys next week.